panic, panic. But, are we on the air? The green light's not on. The green light's on. Yeah, what if the opportunity doesn't come? Well, that's the great fear. But that's why we have to trust. See, what the fact is, we're always trusting. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on. One of the reasons we misuse our religious world is because we're trying to somehow control the future and tell you exactly if you do A, B, C, then D, E, F will work out. We're always trying to control the anxiety inherent in the future. And the fact of it is nobody knows, but we are the ones we're looking for. The life to live is inside us. I shared with my friend the other day on the phone, and it just came to me. I said, from my experience, I'll say two things. If you'll follow your interests, what do you have spontaneous energy toward? What are you interested in? What are you curious about? What seems fun and challenging and weird and strange? And that if you'll follow your interests, and two, if you'll follow your wounds, the things that really hurt you, the things that you don't like, the things that make you angry, the things that have baffled you and disturbed you, if you follow your interest and follow your wounds, they will lead you into your journey. Meanwhile, you have to make a living. I understand. You can't just say, well, I'm going to follow my interests and wounds for a year. You know, while you're flipping burgers, you have to do that. And while you're going to school or raising kids, whatever you're doing, if you just pursue what you're interested in and pursue what hurts, because our wounds are actually what heal us if we get terms with them. But the ego doesn't want to hear this. My ego says, no, I don't want that pain. I don't want that discomfort. I don't want that suffering. I want what I want right now, and I better get it. See, because I'm living in fear, not in trust. And this is what motivates most of us. And see, some of y'all are, you students in their 20s and stuff, y'all are sort of still in the throes of adolescence. And adolescence is you're not that far away from your interests and your passions. Most people, when I see adolescence and midlife is very much the same thing. See, it's all about trying to fit in and give up your true self, or find that true self and follow it. I tell parents that the reason God gives us teenagers, is to get the parents out of the rut, to awaken to the ideals you had when you were 15 and 20, that you gave up in order to fit into the collective and become a mall person, and just do what everybody's doing and get all the stuff you're supposed to get, which is fine, but that stuff doesn't satiate the soul. That doesn't quicken your imagination. That doesn't put you on a journey. You just get all this stuff and you go, well, this is it. But, you're not challenged, you're not, stressed, you're not growing, becoming a larger person. But I tell people in midlife, often I say, when people are come in and they're lost and struggling in the marriage, their kids, their personal life, I often say, why don't you try to think about when you were 9, 10, 11, and 12, what were some of your interests, curiosities? Because, see, you dropped it then because you were told by your peer group in 7th grade, 6th grade, you begin to move away from pleasing parents toward pleasing peers. And between pleasing your peers and your parents, you gave up what was pleasing your true self. Unless you were lucky enough to have parents that said, listen to the true self. Follow your inner world. You were sort of a free thinker and not, you were sort of a marginalized personality even at that age. And some people were. They were sort of not in the loop, and it hurt. But anyway, at those ages of 10, 11, 12, something, your uniqueness was right there on the cusp, and you walked away from it. And it may have been you wanted to paint. It may have been you dreamed of writing. It may have you dreamed of, running something or fixing something or making a difference in the world someplace. But you were told by the collective and the media and everything, don't go that way because it's too hard. You need safety if you want approval. Anyway, so Nietzsche said the safe way may be the most dangerous way, which is kind of a fun way to think. Because what if we end up safe but never becoming a personality? Well, I guess y'all have dropped in on our conversation on class. We'll let them eavesdrop. What were we talking about? I don't know. Random stuff. We're talking about gender, and we're going to look at the next 3 classes we have. 3? 3 classes. We're going to look at intimacy and what's that all about, and how do you find it and achieve it, and relationship. And then I want to look at stages of marriage, and I don't know how far we'll get in that, but we'll try to give it a shot. And the next class, I'll tell you what the multiple choice questions I've got from the book on chapters, I think 10, 11, and 12. I think that's right. And then you'll have, it's on the syllabus? Well, we may throw in 12. We may not. I'll let you know. It's on intimacy, intimate relationships, growing old, and then rape and abuse and stuff like that. And there's some interesting questions and stuff to look at in the book. But we'll do that. I wanted to make a couple of points because some of the a student after class brought this up the other day. When I was telling the stories of the red shoes last time, the little girl whose feet were wrapped in red, and then the queen came along and took her off into the castle, and she got the beautiful shoes and all this stuff. Can you get this hung? You can come up and get this if you want to. Well, one of the things, and they ended up having to cut off her feet. Now, this is a fairy tale for those of you just now tuning in or watching this late at night because you don't have anything else to do. It's a fairy tale. It's full of gross symbolism. But she goes back to the patch where she lives with the poor people, and she grovels for her food. That in no way implies that a woman is just supposed to stay in her place and don't have any dreams or aspirations, or don't take on some of the authorities that need to be taken on, that are keeping you from your gifts and talents and exercising yourself. What the story, I think, does say, and this is in Women Who Run with Wolves, what the story does imply is that it takes a lot of work, daily task of investing in becoming your true self. And rather to have the power, as it were, of being poor and being on a journey of making it, than to give up your journey and surrender to some magical other. And if you want to become your true self, there is a price to pay. How are you going to learn how to think if you don't go to school and learn how to think? How are you going to learn about issues if you don't learn the issues and read or listen to programs or something that really help you learn about the world? How are you going to learn about the women's issues that are going on if you don't get exposed to it? And the point is, you have a choice to get exposed or not get exposed. You have a choice to learn from people who teach you things and inspire you and quicken you to be a better person, or not do that. So the story is about being on your own sacred journey, doing it your way. Better to take 10 years to get there and ferret it out through your own path with all the fears and risk inherent than to take 2 years to get there by somebody else taking you there. I enjoy climbing mountains in Colorado and have for 30 years. Theoretically, there's 2 ways to get to the top of a 14,000-foot mountain. You could get a high-altitude helicopter, and it could, take you up and land you on the top of it. And you could get out, helicopter go away, and there you are at the top and enjoying the view. And you can see like 200 miles. But there's another way to do it, and that's to show up at dawn, or really about an hour before dawn, and start your trek and traverse. And you need to be at the top by 12 or 1 because the lightning storms come and you need to get off. And I'll tell you what, the view, when you climb it, is so much more spectacular than when somebody drops you off. That's why it takes so much courage to become your true self, because you will have invested and taken the time and trouble and learned about it and avoided the rocks. And many times you want to quit, but you keep following that instinctual thing that inside that says this individuation. I'm on a journey to become who I am, that I might be and give myself to the world for my own uniqueness. And I find that people awake, I find my other students just love the challenge of that. Well, where are we going? I don't know. Where's it going to end? I don't know. How long will it take? Nobody knows. See? And perhaps it's the journey that's important and not reaching the summit. But another metaphor is the diamond is at the bottom of the mine. The diamond is just coal under pressure, and coal is just dirt under pressure. And the people who are going to find the diamonds, that which makes life worth living, are going to have to risk going down and struggling in the darkness over time to find that. See? Risking that the thing could collapse on you. Or you could die in the process. Or you could be lost, heading the wrong direction. But the people who I find who find that pearl of great price that's worth living, or the diamond, are those who pay the price to do it. And remember, I graduated with a 2.013 in general business from University of Texas in 1969. Hello? You know, what am I doing sitting here in a major university teaching psychology? And some of you are saying, yeah, what is he doing here? How did this guy get here? Well, I don't know how I got here. But, well, I do. It's a long story and wonderful story. But I was studying what I wasn't interested in undergraduate. I couldn't give a flip about marketing and all that. I mean, it's important. I learned a lot about it, but I just wanted something that was more me, that seemed more adventuresome, like working with people. So anyway, so the red shoes is really about, there is no magic. You have to work at it. And every woman that wants that journey. And when you work at it, let me say this, ladies, men, all of us, that when you work at it, those who work at it, becoming and pay the price, when they step into a room, everybody in the room knows that a person who's dug for the diamonds is in the room. It's unconscious. People know when a person who's walked the journey enters a sacred space. It could be an office building, it could be a party, it could be a church, that when a person walks in the room that has paid the price and suffered under transformation, everybody knows it. Because a king has arrived, or a queen, an integrated person. And all of you know people like that. If you ever hear their story, you'll find that they groveled for the taters like the woman in red shoes. The second thing was we talked about Iron John and the men's movement. And I want to say this. Part of the current men's movement is about men supporting men and not projecting their neediness onto women like we tend to do. We don't deal with our grief, so we go find a woman. We get her to cry for us. Most men are very angry. We're very competitive. We're hurting. We're afraid to deal with our hurts. We're afraid to talk about our failures and wounds. So we go find a woman or a secretary or a daughter or somebody to help us and hold us and care for us. And much of the New Warriors movement, this Robert Bly stuff, is about men supporting men and not being afraid to express their affection and stuff to one another as men sticking together for the betterment of the planet and for the honoring of the masculine, so that we might be better men and human beings for women and not use and abuse women. And another tenet of it is really respecting and honoring a woman and being aware about what do you want from this woman and what are you getting from this woman and how are you using and abusing women. And so it's trying to raise that consciousness. One of the downsides of the movement, and this book I read said that, is the men's movement doesn't seem politically to get out there fighting for women's rights, which are sorely needed in our culture. But they don't actively go do that. Some do. But you'll find anyone who's integrated will go fight for someone's cause that they might find freedom of expression. Remember, it's not mass movements like what's the one in the Astrodome that the guy out of Colorado started? The big religious, Promise Keepers, yeah. And that's an interesting story how that started. As I understand it, the daughter of Bill McCartney, who was the coach of Colorado, was a white lady, fell in love with the quarterback, a black quarterback of the football team. And I don't know all about this, but this may not be totally true. But she got pregnant and they got married and he got cancer and he died. And the next year came around and that whole experience transformed the coach in terms of dealing with his prejudices against black people and just waking his old feelings up. The next year they won the national championship and they had the patch of their dead leaders, a number on his arm. And out of that experience, he met some other Christian leaders, and he started the Promise Keepers, which is has been a real popular men's movement of men getting out there supporting each other, which I think it's kind of like huge pep rally and honoring these codes and all this stuff of men developing, becoming leaders and all this stuff. And at one level, that's all fine, but it's no substitute from one person beginning to integrate their own stuff. Fine, go to math movements, come away fired up. But then again, go to a therapist and talk about your issues with your father and your mother and your fears and your issues about your own thing. And that's more scary. That's scarier to do, isn't it? Than to meet with a bunch of people and go, yeah, this is great. It's like, yeah, but walk alone in to deal with your fears and pay the money and take the time and go take that course by yourself where nobody's patting you on the back. And anyway, that's just a couple of little things I wanted to throw out there. Okay, what I want to do today is look at, 4 principles of relationships from James Hollis's stuff. Any questions or comments out there in Cinco land?
No.
Cool. I'm sorry y'all have to push that button. I wonder if you can hold it down. Is there any way to make it hold down? It's probably not, is there?
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay, here we go. This is Hollis. Pen doesn't work. Ah, this one does. James Hollis. He talks about 4 principles. You know, I apologize that so much of this class is, I give you these 4 things and you give them back to me, but that's just the way we learn. That's just the way we're doing this. But I try to pick some stuff that I think is relevant and interesting and can make a difference in your own life and is related to all this gender stuff. But let me show you. These are 4 things that 4 principles of relationships that have to do with. First one is what we do not know about ourselves. What will be projected onto others. Well, will be projected. Watch this. Onto the other. Capital O. Principle number 1. The unconscious project is us. What we will not face, what we will not come to terms with, will be projected onto another. The classic thing is this. When you point your finger at someone else, this is an old, trite, colloquial, vernacular experience where I point my finger at you, Amy, and I hate pointing fingers at anybody. I've got 3 coming back at me. When I say, you are so talented, you are so gifted, you have so much to offer this world. I see your gold, but my fingers are saying, your gold is also my gold in you. See? When I say, you're so selfish, you're so mean, you're so insecure, I mean, we don't see our unconscious in ourselves, we see it in other people first. That's why when you get this aha or this oh, shoot. We're on TV, I'm not going there. Oh, shoot. Or oh, shucks. When you have this negative, like, oh, no. When you see the things in your wounds, your limitation, your negative shadow. Or when you see your gold, it's always we see it in others. The people you're attracted to, whatever it is in them you're attracted to, it's in you. Or you wouldn't be attracted to it in them. And whatever it is you are disturbed by another person and you don't like, it's you. See? And the more energy you have toward it, affective energy, the more it's you and not them. It's one thing to say somebody and go, that person's just really insecure. But see, I have no affective energy. But if I go, oh my God, they're so insecure, I can't stand being around them. What is that a clue of? Push the button if you want to say it. What's that a clue of? Anyone?
The person who's saying it is really insecure.
Yeah, my insecurity. Absolutely. That's what that is. And see, that's how you can learn about yourself every day. If you'll just be reflective. Gee, Manee, why did I get so upset about that? What is it in that person that just gets under my skin? See, and if you'll stop and reflect over time, you'll get an aha, and you may not want it. That's why you'll have an, oh, shoot, I can't believe, there I am. I'm just like him. I'm just like her. Oh, I thought I outgrew that. I hate that. I thought I was going to avoid that. But, of course, what you becomes conscious, you can integrate, and then it becomes very powerful. Because out of your insecurities, you're going to find your tenderness, your teachability. You're going to find your passion. You're going to find ability to listen to other people. You're going to find humility. You're going to find your own personal integrity and insecurity. I mean, you're going to find commonality with the rest of the human race by your insecurity. See? Anyway, so what we do not know about ourselves will be projected onto the other. And here, when I say
Dr.
the other,
Egan,
yeah,
I have a question. The part that you're saying that you don't like about somebody
Yes.
is really you.
Mhm.
I kind of have a hard time with that because I have a person in mind that it's all the way he is. I can't imagine. I mean, I don't think that I'm like that. I mean, like I see the way he was raised, and I was raised nothing like that. So I kind of have a hard time when you say that.
yeah, keep going.
Understanding.
Well, see, I think you're just
I mean,
making. I think you're making an observation, and there's some observations that just totally get under my skin because it's terrible and it's horrible. But it doesn't. You can check it out. You can check it out, and if you can go, well, I'm aware of that part of me. But if you go, I don't have any of that in me, then you're just skating on thin ice. But if you want to follow the example anonymously.
That's funny. Amy just said that. Well, like, okay, he's disrespectful towards even like my parents.
Right.
It's my sister's husband.
Okay, we'll cut this out of the tape. Okay, it's someone very close who's disrespectful to your
Yeah,
parents.
like even to my parents. And I mean, I don't. It's just certain things he says. I mean, it's just been over time, and it gets under my skin. It's like, how could he say that? That's just so rude and disrespectful.
Well,
I guess I wasn't raised like that.
Right? Is it disrespectful in the sense that he's being he's insecure and he's being mean, or is it disrespectful in the sense that he has an opinion and he'll challenge their opinion?
I mean, I guess it could be. I can't really figure him out.
Yeah, and because see, it could be some valuable gold for you because he's not it could be a negative shadow that he's insecure and he hasn't come to terms with his own issues, authority figures, so he has to put them down and be disrespectful because he doesn't respect himself and he doesn't feel like an adult, so he has to be disrespectful of them because he hasn't found the ability to respect himself. That would be his shadow. It could be that what appears to be disrespectful for you could actually be he's just has a different opinion and he's not afraid to say it, but you may be afraid to say it. Like when your dad says, it's always this way, and he goes, no, it's not. But could you say that to your dad, for example? And you don't have to go into the details. Because it awakens within you something to look at. And I'm not saying he's right or you're right or your parents are right. I'm saying dig into it a little bit and go, what is it about this guy that bugs me? And it could be he's just real insensitive and not respectful. And you go, I don't like that. And that could be all that it is.
Actually, here I thought of something like, okay, for example, if they come over for dinner and whatever my mom cooked, and he's like, oh, I don't like that, and he's really rude about it, and I thought that could really hurt somebody's feelings. I mean, and he walks in the other room, and he's like, I'm not going to eat it. I was like, I guess it's, I was just
rude
taught
is
you
a
don't,
good word
do
for that. And of course, is your mom prepared to not invite him back?
and she just takes it. And I would say, stand up for yourself. I
Yeah,
mean, he's
see,
just
there
a
you
rude
go.
person.
There you go. So it's good fodder for self-discovery. You're going, why does she take it, and why does he do that? And what's the real underlying issue? Is he not wanting to be there? Does he see your sister's too tied to her family, and he's angry about it because he's really tied to his, but he won't admit it? And, it's just full of juicy stuff. And, of course, that's what we therapists are for out there. But it's some good stuff to look at. And I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing this story, because all of us have episodes like this happening all the time. And the deal is to look at it and say, how am I like him? How am I like her? But it's interesting to reflect on and look at. Thank you for sharing that, Shauna. You're welcome. Oh, she can't talk.
You're welcome.
See, I'm not supposed to. When I look at you here, that all those people out there going to sleep at 2, and nobody watches this at 2. They all tape it, right? Yeah. Okay, what we do not know about ourselves will be projected onto the other. And the other is, let me just show you, the other is parent, lover, spouse, friend, boss, child, priest or minister, teacher. Am I missing one? Mentor. Yeah, it could be stranger. Good. In other words, we need one another, and we can't become our true self. The way we find out what's under the surface is often by these other people that we are projecting our life. We've looked at this some. Our stuff in here that's meant to come to consciousness, so we lower the water level and become more whole, more aware, is that we learn about stuff down in here that needs healing, that we need to take a risk on, our gold, our wounds. We learn about that through projections. What we do not know consciously up here, the old ego, what we do not know about ourselves, what's under the water, will be projected onto the other. So if I'm willing to look at how I'm using and abusing people, I will discover about myself. And if I'm depending on somebody else for my money, obviously at certain times we do. If I'm depending on somebody else to do my thinking for me, if I'm depending on somebody else up here to nurture me because I don't know how to nurture myself, if I'm depending on somebody else to give me fun and meaning because I don't know how to go have fun or meaning without that person. If I'm really depending on somebody else to protect me and make it safe, somebody to rescue me, all of those things that I'm depending on another person for lie within myself. And so the process of maturing is withdrawing those projections and dealing within me those things that are projected out. My psyche, in effect, says when we project on another, and it could be we're angry with someone, we're turned on to someone, we feel close to someone, the question to ask is, when or where have I been here before? What previous experience does this feel like? What is the analog? What's the analogy here? And see, I'm 54. What helps when you get older is you see these, John can probably attest to this too, some of y'all, you see these patterns working over time. And you keep coming back to these familiar places because we're continuing to meet our shadow. Often a conflict with a boss that, say, some woman is having in her urge to express herself and become, that conflict may be very similar to the conflict she had with Dad. And it usually is, because our authority conflicts with authority figures, be it ministers, bosses, teachers, anyone who we give our authority away to, generally goes back to our childhood. And we can think, could I voice my opinion at home and be different and not be shamed or ridiculed or put down for it or ignored? And see, if at home you learn to keep quiet and not risk expressing yourself, what's going to happen in later life is you're going to run into that same conflict over and over and over. And you'll be forced to do what? You have to push the button to say it. What are you going to be forced to do later in life?
You have to face it eventually.
Yeah, you have to face it. That's very good, Kim. You have to, as the teenagers say, you got to deal with it. No, I don't want to. I just want to find the right authority figure who'll treat me properly. See, and then the problem is you never grow up. And that's the magical other that doesn't exist. Well, I just need to marry the right person. Oh my God, I married the wrong person. I got to go marry somebody else so I don't have to work, because that's one of my problems. Well, what will we always do? We'll go repeat the same thing, because the gift of the unconscious is to always give us what we need. This is terrible. Not always what we want. Because remember, the urge of life is to become a whole person, become an individual. So the unconscious is a little relentless, the destroyer that keeps giving us what we need, because you have to grow up. You have to take responsibility for your life. And if you don't, then you live somebody else's life and not your own. It is very difficult to simply be in the moment, because this moment is all of our moments are viewed through the prism of history. Our history is always with us. That's why the adage from Shakespeare said, "To thine own self be true." Plato said, "Know thyself." And the more I know myself and aware of myself, I know the baggage I'm bringing to every relationship. And to the degree I don't know myself and know my baggage, then what happens is, whenever you see me, you see all my baggage. And I go, "Hi, do you love me and care for me? And do you want to carry my bags for me? Because I love you and want to carry your bags for you. Won't that be fun? You won't have to unpack your bags to find out who you are, and I won't have to unpack mine. And maybe we can both do an end run around this stuff and skate through life and never become a person." And how many of us have seen people who, a couple who've been married 50, 60 years, and they're standing there so proud, and you look at their eyes are dead, and their affect is flat, their shoulders are slumped, and they go, "We're so happy we've been together 50 years. And you go, "Yeah, but look at the price. Neither one of you became an individual and followed your passion and dreams, because you just stuck together like two cows dying in a hailstorm out there." So obviously the experience of intimacy will activate our entire history on the intimate other, especially the primal relationship with parents. The vulnerability, the neediness, Hollis says, are the things that will always come up. What we wish not to acknowledge about ourselves, our narcissism, our selfishness, our rage, our insecurity, our fears, all those things we don't want to acknowledge about ourselves. And all of us have boatloads of stuff. All the shadow stuff, it gets repressed or it gets projected onto the other. See? One woman, he said in therapy with me, had a husband who had a highly restricted range of emotions. Could never cry, never get angry, never have any feelings. And his job, he would thusly provoke her to anger and to sorrow and to conflict, so as to experience his emotional world through her. Boy, I've done some of that, a lot of that. And then blame her for being so emotional. You're always crying. See? Why are you so sensitive? You need to be tough like me, see. The fact is, nobody's that tough. He doesn't have permission to cry, so he gets her to cry for him. Or he gets her to be angry for him. See? It's always the nice people who are the scariest people, because the nice people who have all this, little silly smile, always nice, they're vampires. We are vampires, aren't we? We're sucking off other people for that. Okay, so being intimate in a relationship is a bit like asking someone to join hands with us, but only after walking across a minefield which we have planted the mines. So, what we do not know about ourselves will always be projected onto the other. And that sounds ominous, but it's incredible news because you can always take the conflicts in all relationships and the attractions in relationships, and you can learn about yourself. Whether that's with family, with a lover, with your parents, with your children, or whether that's a boss or a secretary. What is this conflict causing me to have to come to terms with inside myself? And for a lot of women out there in the marketplace, it's that I've got to continue to find my gentle authority and my assertive spirit and relate and not give in, or whatever it might be. The second thing Hollis says is that all relationships, principle of relationships, is, this is some of what I said, we project our childhood wounding. Our childhood wounding and our individuation imperative onto the other. Capital O. That's his second point. Is the human estate is precarious, as Pascal noted in the 17th century, that we are but a fragile reed, yet a thinking reed capable of writing a Brandenburg concerto, creating a concentration camp, or imagining our own demise. No one escapes pathology. It's interesting, the word psychopathology. Took that in graduate school a couple of times. I guess I didn't figure it out the first time. L-O-G-Y. Thank you. Pathology. Psycho, I didn't put the psycho in there. Psychopathology. Psycho means what? What have we learned that psyche means? Psycho means. God, I hope somebody gets this. What? It means soul. Pathos means suffering. And ology means what? Study of. So our psychopathologies, our anxiety, our depression, our obsessions, they're really a study of how our soul is suffering. See how we label it as bad, evil, wrong, stop it, and sometimes we need medication, we need help, we need hospitalization when it's getting bad. But it's really the suffering of our soul, psychopathology. It's a study of how it's the expression of the soul's suffering. It is not whether or not one is wounded, but it's how deeply, and more important, what adaptations have we made as a result of our wounding. The problem for most of it is the defenses we put up. It's the defenses from the wounding that every human being gets, because nobody got parented like everybody's supposed to get parented. And what are the defensives that we put up? It's not life's inevitable wounding, Hollis says, that damages our relationships, but the precepts and the stratagems that we bring from our personal histories. So, if when you got afraid as a child, you couldn't go and tell mom and dad, I'm just really scared, because they'd say, oh, grow up. You know, you're 3. You're 3 years old, and they're saying, grow up. Be a man. You're a young woman now. You're 5. You're in kindergarten. You should have these things dealt with. Don't be afraid. Fear is a sin. Anxiety is a sin. Here's the verse in the Bible to show you it's a sin and it's wrong. You know, the kid's just freaking out. Why are they freaking out? Because they're a human being, a humanoid, animal in training. They're a person. And so when somebody says, don't ever be afraid because it's a sign of weakness, then what might someone do is they do the turtle motif. They stick their head in a shell. They said, well, I'm going to make it through this life by not dealing with anything. So when you get in conflicts later on where you get afraid, rather than say it, you just retreat to the shell that you learned to do as a kid. See what I'm saying? So the problem is not that you have fears. The problem is how you deal with fears. Or when you feel somebody hurts you, and you're going, I'm really angry and upset because you did something that really hurt. I need to tell you so you don't do that again. We need to deal with this. Now, if as a kid you learn to fight, see, this is Karen Horney stuff, right? A way to deal with anxiety. Fight, flight, or go towards someone. See? What was your motif when conflict arises? Whenever you get hurt, you just start fighting someone? So you can't ever dialogue? See? So that childhood wounding and the stratagem, the motif, how we dealt with those conflicts, that becomes the problems in relationships. And if someone, if we have big, powerful parents or caregivers who they always won and they intimidated us, and we just learn to leave the scene, whenever we have a normal conflict, we won't stay. We'll just get out of there. And I'm telling you wonder why the divorce rate is 65% in towns of 350,000 or more. Hello? People have conflict. How do they deal with it? Well, as a kid, I could never work through my conflicts. My parents could never say they were wrong. They could never try to work. So I've learned to avoid them at all costs. See? So we run. See? Or when we have a conflict, my motif is to try to give more and say, please love me, don't be mad at me. I can't stand rejection. And so I don't stand and try to deal with it, find that healthy separateness. I might try to coerce someone through more love and affection not to be mad at me. See what I'm saying? The point is that... Yes?
I've found that I'm very confrontational towards, my mother.
Uh-huh.
But, when it comes to friends, I do what you just said. I just am just don't be mad at me. Don't be angry with me. But when it comes to my mom, oh my gosh. If she makes me mad, I tell her as soon as she does it. She really, makes me mad.
And does she always back down?
Often she tells my dad.
What?
She just tells my dad, and then I get in trouble from him. It's especially if since I'm living at home this summer.
Yes.
My dad told me the other day, he was like, you need to just stop fighting with her because you're making my life 10 times harder. So she won't say anything to me. She'll just go tell my dad.
Okay, and so what might you surmise there about your mother's woundedness and her issues?
I think she's a really weak person.
Well, well, she's no weaker than I am. I mean, we're all weak. I mean, we're not going to shame her, but yeah. So she has an issue with her own personal authority, and this is from her childhood. I guarantee, probably her caregiver, father was very demanding, authoritarian, tyrannical. Somebody was at home. And so she learned to not stand up and deal with stuff because somebody overwhelmed her. So she married someone who would still keep her in that mode and rescue her. And actually what would be helpful for your dad to say, and I won't charge off for this, of course, is, why don't you deal with it with our daughter? Because I'm not going to go tell her. I'm not going to be y'all's go-between. You see, you deal with it. Well, no, I married you for you to deal with it. Well, that's not going to happen anymore. See? And so the little game changes, and it upsets the little dance that's going on. And as a result of that, healing will come, but it will be painful and it will be difficult. See? Yeah, my hunch is you can get away with it. You do, I'm just speculating, you do your mother like your dad does because your mother's become the punching bag of the family. And she takes it. See? What a price for her, what a price for all of you. But with your friends, interesting, you're more like your mother. See, isn't that insightful? Kind of.
I guess I'll be changing that.
Yeah. Well, and again, thank you so much for being vulnerable. Here we are on national TV. This is going on all across the country. No, it's not. But for you to be honest, you ought to see the faces in here. They're going, like, my God, she's talking about what I'm feeling. We all go through that. But so thank you so much for being vulnerable and honest, because you know what you're doing is you're doing what's called intimacy. You're risking opening up and letting us see your real self. And I don't feel condemnation. I feel tremendous respect and courage for both of y'all to share your stories, and that you feel safe enough.
Maybe it's easier for us since we're not in y'all's presence, really, since we're over in our own little room.
Yeah, right.
Maybe it's easier.
Well, it is probably easier. Thank you. It's probably harder face to face. In most of my classes, if we're not on TV, people can begin to open up. But still, that you're just doing us all a tremendous service by doing that, because we're all like you. We all have dads and moms and strength and weakness and all these little games. But the point is your weakness comes out with your friends, like me, because I desperately need their approval because I'm afraid of abandonment. But we'll get to that in a minute, because really abandonment is the path to becoming a person. Abandonment is the path to becoming a person. Feeling alone in the universe is how you, develop a personality. Because you can't leech off and lean on to other people. You got to find something in self to lean on and hang on to. It is terrorizing for those of us who grew up and had a lot of abandonment as kids. For those of you that had good, positive connection, identification, participation, mystique, they call it, that connected bonding early years. Oh, you go, well, so they don't like me, to hell with them. I can live without them. See, but some of us, that's harder to do than others. But thank you for that. So we project our childhood wounding, number 2, and our individuation imperative onto the other. Let me say a couple more things about that. Just as we wish to love the other and be loved in return, so we bring our history to them. How could we not? Obviously not all of our history is a saga of suffering, or we would be unable to bond with others at all. But the good stuff takes care of itself, Hollis says. It's the bad stuff that contaminates relationships. But that's where the gold works out, is working through the bad stuff. Moreover, he said, it is the nature of our condition that we long for the other, the lover, the friend, the spouse, the child, the parent, somebody out there. We long for the other, so we seek forever to return to this primary connectedness. For we long for the gods who went underground. We long for connection. We long for fixes. We long for the high. We long for the cuddling and the holding. We are all addicted, seeking connection through chemical substance, power, money, and most of all, a search for that magical other special person that will take the loneliness and the agony and the vacuum that's in our heart away. We long for nurturance, for safe harbor, and for completion. And I didn't say this when we were talking about masculinity, but where do you see the stereotype masculine talking about the deep need for the eternal feminine? One of the places, our country and western dance, is in country songs. Here's Bubba, up there singing his song, chewing tobacco. He's got his gun and his pickup, and, he's going to tear your head off. And what does he do when he picks up a guitar? Yeah, he talks about, you came into my life and I was alive and you left me and I'm dead. And if I could only have you back again. Isn't that interesting? Big old macho guy is just a wimp and a wussy when it comes to women and love. And what is he really looking for? If you take in those songs, and women do it too, we all do it, the search for the magical other, if you take away the lover that broke someone's heart, or someone who came into my life, I can't think of the songs, y'all are probably thinking of many of them. If you take it and replace the name of the woman, the man, with someone else, what would you find out? If you put the self in place of the woman, the true self, God within, who I really am, my deeper self, if you replace the lover with the word, my true self, or God, or the Lord, or whatever it is, my creator, my source of my life, whatever language you want to use, you'll find out what we're really singing about. Because no human being can fill up within me what only my deeper self, the mystery, can fill up. See what I'm saying? That's why if I'm depending on some other person, that doesn't mean that people can't give us love and nurturing, and we all don't need connection, because it's vital to the human experience. But it's no replacement for finding one's inner world. So when you listen to songs on the radio, just substitute the lover and hear the cry of the cowboy looking for his lost soul. See, that he's projected onto a woman. And vice versa. No extra charge for that, just a little bit of trivia out there. So the second stratagem, and let me say this. So it's not our wounding, it's how we handle our wounding that damages our relationships. The second part of this is our individuation imperative onto the other. What does that mean? That means I must assume responsibility for my choices. No matter what wounding, we must now forever assume responsibility for our choices. We must be able to internalize, to be able to see one's life as generated by our choices and those dynamics derived from within. We are obligated, Hollis says, to ask ourselves, where in me does this come from? What history does it, what have I been pushed to do and to grow and to discover? What hidden source is creating repetitive patterns in my life? What is it inside myself that I must find? How must I grow? How must I find my own place? The individual's task is to become an individual and to become a personality and to bring fruition to the experience that nature is making within us. The responsibility for one's journey is part and parcel of the process of individuation. So if I go, this relationship is so boring because I'm not getting any interesting thing out of this, what must I need to do? Go take a class. Go learn a trade. Go learn a hobby. Follow one's interest. In fact, if you want somebody to be interested in you, be an interesting person. Develop your interests, and you bring something to the table. Otherwise, what you bring to the table is just a reflection of the other person. So the second is I project my childhood wounding and ask others to heal it, and also project the imperative to keep growing and learning and becoming myself onto another. Well, I don't want to go take lessons and learn how to play the piano again, but, come here, Susie, I want you to learn to play the piano. You got to try it again. You're going to learn to play this piano. When, in fact, something within me wants to play the piano. But, I'm too old. I'm 40 years old. You're only 40. Grandma Moses started painting at 80. For goodness sake. We lay on our children the imperative to grow and discover the journey that we have given up. And that is a huge wound to our children. And they all know it. I need to go do this to make Dad happy. Dad didn't want to play the violin, but he wouldn't play it. So I have to play it because then he's happy. And if he's happy, then he'll let me go to the school I want to go to. Because if I don't play the violin, he's going to be mad. It's these silly kind of things that go on the whole time. And fortunate is the child or teenager who gets to live with parents who are still growing, discovering, creating, and becoming. See what I'm saying? That's the individuation imperative. Same thing in a relationship. Fortunate if you keep growing and becoming and your lover, spouse keeps growing and becoming. And in any relationship that your spouse or lover says, well, I don't want you to go study that. We're going to have to go to another place. I don't know. I don't think you should do that. But I really want to. See, that's a relationship that's skating on thin ice. If you're not in a relationship to help someone become who they're meant to be and support them in it, then get out of it. Because what you're going to do is kill them. And if you're in a relationship where somebody doesn't support your interests, of course we have to adjust. Of course there's always compromises to make. But if you're in a relationship with someone who's not affirming your path, that's real scary. Because your life goes by and you go, well, I would have gone to medical school, but, my husband wanted me to stay home and take care of the kids. Well, yeah. What's wrong with staying home and taking care of the kids? But what's wrong with going to medical school and finding a compromise within it? Because if you're meant to be a physician, ladies, and you don't go do that, you know the price your kids and everyone around you is going to pay? Great dilemmas, great struggle. The third thing as we move along here, I had so much to cover today, is projection, Hollis says, gives way to resentment and the problem of power. When I'm asking another to give me what I'm not willing to give me and they don't do it, I get pretty ticked. I get resentful. And then if I use seduction, anger, manipulation, coerciveness to try to get them to be what I can't be or I'm not willing to accept in my life, then eventually that resentment will turn into a power trip. happens to every one of us, because all of us know how to sulk, we know how to glare, we know how to be late with passive-aggressive behavior, we know how to not give our energy when we're mad and upset. Happens to all of us all the time. We know not how to look someone in the eye because we're mad. The power trip, you know. If you're not going to give me what I want from you, then I'm going to punish you for that. While the chief fantasy of our culture is longing to find the magical other to ease the burden of our own journey of individuation, no one can ever do that. And if we were to find someone who could, we would then be bound in a horribly regressive relationship, Hollis says, one in which the partners are rule-bound, infantile, and stuck. You are my hero. I've given my life to you, and I'm so safe. And I'll just do whatever you want, and I won't ever question anything. Hello? It's a regression to childhood, isn't it? Both partners have to be, we all know relationships like that, and they're not a pretty sight. Both partners have to be wound identified and locked into splinter mythologies of their own pathology. It's a lot of ologies. See, this is that codependent state where we are emotionally constricted, developmentally stuck, fused into a symbiosis of naive fantasy that the other can truly take care of us and give our life meaning. Let me give you the classic, the classic, right here, I forget what this is called, but the rescuer, R-E-S-C-U-E-R, the rescuer comes out here and rescues the victim. Did y'all ever look at this? So it's kind of some old TA stuff. And then the victim gets rescued. Ah, thank you for saving me. And the victim becomes the perpetrator. Is that how you spell it? Well, you rescued me okay, but I'm still not fixed. I'm still not together. I still have this aching and longing. You're going to have to do something else. Let's get a bigger house. We need another child. You just need to stop working so hard. We need to get a beach house. We need to stop seeing your mother. We need to see my mother. We need to see your mother. We just need to do something else. You need to, whatever. You know, you need to lose weight, honey. You need to gain weight. You need to get a facelift. I mean, both men and women. We need to do this. We need to do that. Because you came and rescued me. This is for men and women. The man can be the rescuer of the damsel in distress. The woman's a rescue of the poor little boy in distress. And then we get rescued, and then it's not enough. And then guess what? The rescuer now becomes the victim. Ouch. I was just trying to rescue you. Yeah, but you didn't do it enough. Hey, get off my back. See? That's why whenever we do something for a child that they can do for themselves, we're really victimizing them, and we're victimizing ourselves. That's why healthy parenting of teenagers is stop rescuing and start relating and say, well, you know, I can help with this, but I can't give you all of that. You'll have to go to work. No, I'm not going to go to work. I'm going to quit and flunk out of school. Well, okay, flunk out of school. That's an interesting way to spend your life. But, you know, I'm only going to give you X. I'm not going to give you Y, because you could go to work and do it. And then when they go to work, what happens? They begin to find their personal power and authority, that they can make money and take care of themselves, and they don't need you anymore. So projection always gives way to resentment and the problem of power. And that's when relationships start having huge conflicts, is because the magical other hasn't saved you. You know, it's the rose-colored glasses, the romantic phase goes away. Let us continue the fantasy of finding the other willing to carry our own individuation task for us. Well, in time, the other will grow to resent us, even though he or she was willing signatory in the silent contract. See, that's why we all get married, thinking the marriage itself will make us full. And in many ways, it nurtures us, gives us security that we all need, but also it will bring out our problems and force us to grow. That resentment would leak into our relationship and corrode it. No one is angrier than someone who's doing the right thing and secretly wishing for someone else. No one becomes more frustrated than one who washes a mate's laundry at the expense of his or her own laundry. Ouch. No one becomes more resentful than one who's investing in one's development at the exclusion of their own. It's very subtle, isn't it? I'm loving you so you can become all you're meant to be. But little old me, I'm going to just stay back here and be the martyr. Ooh, is that a setup? So be careful for the someone who loves you and wants to help you become, but you get a sense they're not willing to do their own work or ask you to give for them. See? It will take a long time for our primal material to find an object upon which to land, Hollis says. One would not be so tempted if the primary other were in fact serving the terms we contracted them to do. But since he or she is not doing so, we project the archetypal material onto the other for renewal and recovery of energy and revival of hope. That's a lot of words. What it simply says is people can't do for us what we have to do for ourselves. And that means, and that's when we get angry and resentful. And often it's forcing us to do our own inner work. And then the fourth thing is the only way, he says, the only way to heal relationship is to take full responsibility. And full responsibility is always painful because it's the end of fantasy for one's own individuation. What a disappointment. How unromantic. Gah! Where's my hero, my heroine? The other was not put on earth to serve or take care of me, protect me from my life. No one has brought us to protect us from our life. What a profound disappointment. Hollis says it's almost as great as the loss of paradise itself when we have to grow up. We are apparently alone and on the road. We cannot take another's journey, he says. We may offer each other encouragement and compassion, even great assistance. And I can't tell you how important that is to have encouragement, compassion, and assistance. But we cannot take one another's journey any more than we can die our other's death. If they cannot die our death, why should they live our life? It is not the meaning of being here tied to becoming whatever the gods or nature had intended? Individuation demands an energy larger and tougher than the narcissism of looking for fantasy. It is humbling, terrifying at times, always an invitation to become a larger person. But the goal of therapy, says, I want to read this, says Fred Hahn, is to help a patient go beyond intellectualizing and rationalizing to the point where he can move to uncharted territories and seek and find the anguish and terror of total realization and discover that he can survive in this world. To know that life can be truly absurd and capricious, that one is not omnipotent, that without magic as the ultimate defense there is pain at times and there are hurts which hurt more than words can describe. And after the grief and after the mourning, not only for the lost object, but for the lost fantasies, that we're able to find our life and live without so much illusion. To recognize that happiness is not a condition, but a precious experience. And if one lives without illusion, one must impart meaning to one's life, that hope must replace expectation and demands, and that activity must replace passivity, and that realistic hope must be directed toward the expansion and growth of one's potential, which implies experiencing more richly both sorrow and joy. The fact of the matter is that we can't find the security, the succor, the sanctuary in another person. And at times we need it. See? But more than that, we are called to just find the courage to be ourselves. And his fourth point here is the only way to heal any relationship, whether it's an unfair boss or unfair government or unfair spouse or parent or anything, is to continue to take responsibility for our own journey. Does that kind of make sense? And see, I think that that's where life becomes so interesting, because we cease from blaming. The challenge, Hollis says finally, is to grow up. Let me write this. To grow up to assume our own life, take responsibility. And I used to hate that word until I had kids. I thought responsibility was for those boring adults I was around as a kid who were like, be irresponsible, be irresponsible. They had no fun. But responsibility is what? Is the ability to respond. Wow. That's like you can cry when you're sad. That's the ability to respond. You can stand up for yourself when you need to. You can walk away. What is that song by Kenny Rogers? Know when to fold them. Responsibility is the ability to respond to whatever you need to do. Mom, Dad, I love you. I'll do anything to keep our friendship going, but I'm just not going there. This is what I need to do, and I'll pay for it as best I can. Honey, I love you. I want to stay in this relationship, this marriage, but I'll take responsibility for this part that I've been asking you to do. And I know it's scary, and I don't know where it's going to come out, but I'm assuming responsibility for a part of my life that I've always given to you. And as I've seen so many men in midlife go, I've asked you to raise the kids, and I haven't done my part. But I will cut back on money. Even if we have to move, I'm going to be at home more. And nowadays I see a lot of women in midlife going, trying to do it all. Do it all. And we can't. So anyway, my responsibility. And the third thing is to be an adult. The fourth thing is to be an adult. Be an adult instead of a child. Is to take life as we have it. We always carry the frightened child within. And I love this line. But we can comfort our frightened child. I like that. We can stand on the ramparts of our own soul. You know what a rampart is? We can watch on the ramparts of our own soul. A rampart, I think, is that in the citadel, the fortress. I think the rampart is I was over in San Juan, Puerto Rico a few years ago, saw the old fortress. The rampart is that, it's the bridge right on top where they have the cannons, where you stand and fire and you watch for the incoming ships. But see, as an adult, I can stand watch on the rampart of my own soul. Is this good for me? Is this not good for me? Is this what I need to do? Is this not what I need to do? I just love that image, see, of standing watch on the rampart of my own soul, my own journey. See. Okay, now we just have a few minutes left, and I want to at least look at this one. I want to look at this this handout I gave to you on personality and aloneness. It's just these 2 simple pages. No, it's just 1 page. Y'all have the handout, don't you, Amy and Shauna?
Yes.
Okay. Just look at that for just a second, because it kind of concludes this. Does anybody not have it? I have another one up here, if you need it. Oh, actually, let's not look at that. Let's look at what I handed out today. Let's look at this owning our own stuff. It's kind of a good conclusion. And this won't be on the test. I think those 4 things I shared, that's an easy test question. May not be easy, but it's a good test question because it's 4 little things. I I think I sent you all this today, didn't I? Owning your own stuff.
Yeah, we have.
Okay. Everybody has it, and so you pull it out of your little file at home, or those who need to turn off the TV, go beam up www.captainmarvelous.com. That's my name on. No, it's not. But it's on your syllabus. So I said that to somebody yesterday, and this older guy said, "Captain, why not General Marvelous?" And I went, "Yeah, Captain Captain Marvel. Maybe one day I'll be a General Marvel." Okay, this is kind of a neat way to how owning our own stuff enriches self-awareness. And let me just read this. Jung said, with the rise of continuous consciousness and not before, psychological relationship becomes possible. Meaning, the more you're aware, the better you can have a relationship with somebody else. If you're not aware of your own stuff, you're going to have a shallow relationship. Second thing is we carry within the wonders we seek without, for Africa and all her prodigies lie within our human soul. Everything we're looking for out there is in us. Now, let me read this, because I think this is so powerful. We develop ourselves sufficiently through the magnus opus. What does opus mean? What's an opera? It comes from the word opera. It means a work. A work. Your life is a magnum opus. That means your life is the most important work. Like a work is a painting, a play. The magnum opus, the most important thing you'll ever do of life is individuation, is become yourself. That's the magnum opus of life. Do you remember Mr. So-and-so's opus, that show? Mr. who? Mr. Holland's opus. See, this is his life work. This is his work. I love old language like this because when we develop ourselves sufficiently through the magnus opus of our own individuation, several things. We don't feed off other people. Secondly, we become less dependent, asking less of others and more of ourselves. Third is we let others off the hook for not delivering what they could never deliver. I think number 3 is a milestone with our parents. When we just say, I got the dad I needed, I got the mom I needed, and they could never deliver what I wanted them to deliver. They never could. But I didn't need that from them. I got it someplace else. And you can get it many other places. I think it's a huge milestone when we just let our mom be whoever, whatever her name is, and our dad be persons instead of parents. Because believe me, one day you may be there too, and you'll go, oh my God. The fourth thing is we let others assume responsibility for their own journey. We don't have to rescue and fix everybody. We just let the God of the world, the universe, the Creator, be the source of their life and their healing. We don't have to do it. Fifth is, when we do this work, we provide our own uniqueness to enrich our relationships. People love us because of our otherness, ultimately. They don't love us because of what we do for them. They love us because of the richness of our own queerness, our own uniqueness, our own oddity. See? 6 is we keep others from inappropriately feeding off us, forcing others to deal with their own stuff. That's hard for codependents like me. I like people to feed off me. After a while, though, I have no energy left. See? So we stop that, and we ask people to deal with their own stuff. And then the 7th thing is we honor the work of God within ourselves and others in the context of the larger mystery. We sort of let it be with them and let it be with us. Therefore, we can love and relate without controlling and using people. James Hollis said that. And then this quote by Jung, it says, where love reigns, there is no will to power. Where there is the will to power and control is paramount, love is lacking. One is but the shadow of the other. So I hope that gives you some ideas on relationships, and I'll see you next class, and we'll look at intimacy and stages of marriage. And thanks for participation, and thank you guys out there. You did a good job.
Bye.